Just going to start with a brief introduction for those who don't know me. I'm Radhika. I am one of the coaches here at Nutrition Works of Colorado. And I work mostly with busy professionals, mostly women, men as well, but mostly they're all either busy entrepreneurs or busy working professionals. And what they are trying to achieve when they work with me is really optimizing their health, upgrading their health from a mind, body, energy perspective, and really helping them. I use different tools which incorporate a lot of evidence-based tools. I also incorporate a lot of, I kind of call it as a trifecta between East and West, and also a combination of a lot of, individualized protocols, because everyone is so unique in their journey, and really getting them to this ultimate place of transformation, which is mostly in that whole spectrum of the mind, body, energy piece. So I wanted to begin today's session, which is essentially with just some housekeeping. So this is a free coaching that we are offering at Nutrition Works, and I'm one of the coaches offering that. Rachel, who's the founder of Nutrition Works, she as well offers this coaching once in a month. And really the objective is to share with you how we come across as coaches, how is it to work with us. So I would really encourage you to pose the question and let me, allow me to be of service to you. And of course, I have a lot to share myself, but I would really want to use this session to offer you what you probably need from me, and, really be of service from that point of view. So don't feel shy. If you don't feel like coming live for a session, send me a question and I will, take it on from there. So while we are waiting for some questions to come, I just want to begin by highlighting that when I work with clients on a session, I really like to begin from a state of presence. We all have a lot going on in our lives. And when clients are trying to work with me, or they want to have a session with me, I really work with them in collaboration, really with the objective that this is going to be a co-creation, and it's not just me offering them, information, tools, guidance, because there is already a lot of information out there. So the whole objective is to co-create, and that can only happen from a state of presence. So I will invite you to, be here from a beginner's perspective. And I will also invite you and encourage you to join me in this exercise, which is really helping us come down to a state of presence. And then we can begin this session from that place. So if you would be willing, and I'm going to be doing this with you, is just close your eyes wherever you are. And you may, at this point, be sitting, or you might be driving, wherever you are. I mean, if you're driving, you can just, don't close your eyes, but just like take some deep breaths. But otherwise, I would encourage you to bring your dominant hand on your heart and just rest it here. Relax your shoulders and begin to focus on your breath. And if that's not your thing, you can begin to focus on any sound or sensation in your body. Relax your shoulders, relax your jaw, relax the space behind your eyes. And thank yourself for making time for yourself to explore, to engage, to perhaps just create some space in your busy day for yourself. And take a deep inhale and a deep exhale. And do it a couple of more times. So I can inhale. And exhale. And at this point, I would invite you to ask yourself, what is it that you really want? It could be today, at this moment, or from a long-term perspective. And just notice if that brings about any sensation in your body. Do you feel it somewhere? Just notice, don't judge. And then just slowly come back. Come back to the present and slowly open your eyes. Okay, I definitely feel more relaxed. It's always good to close our eyes and go within. So with that said, I want to begin. I don't see any questions yet, but I want to begin by highlighting an important aspect that I bring to my coaching, which is really understanding, and this also involves, understanding where the client is coming from. So, and also to understand themselves better. So I always like to pose this question to the client, and it is something that I work on myself as well. What are an individual's values? Like when you are coming to work with a coach, it's very important to understand that this whole process of transformation that happens over a period of 3 months or 6 months, 12 sessions is one that is really helping you go deep within yourselves. And so I really like to begin with an exercise where I help the client understand what are their individual values. And this always helps them from the perspective of, if they have a goal, let's say most of them, not all of them, come with a goal for weight loss. So really helping them understand why is it that they're wanting to lose weight, and then helping them really dive deep. What are their top 5 or top 3 values, and how we can align their goals to their values. And from there, once they have recognized what their values are, really helping them take action from an intentional perspective. So it's not really like we're going into a go and acting on their goal without them really understanding what are their values, where are they rooted in their values, how are they bringing about those value-based actions into their life. So just to give you an example, some of my top 5 values or top 3 values are love for learning, and how do I engage that in my life every day. Another one is gratitude, and that's a very important value for me, which is something that I dip into every single day. For me, it's almost like an antidote to anything that I have going on, which might not be really feeling good in the present moment. So I immediately have access to that state of gratitude, which I like to dip into like every single day, sometimes twice a day. And then another value of mine is that of service, which again I bring into action not only in my personal life, but also in my professional life. When I'm working with clients, I want to always serve them from a place of service and not really anything else. And that really helps me in my relationship with my clients. So these are some of my values, and I feel that they really bring me back to myself whenever I go out of alignment. And so I would really encourage you to also, really, if there's one thing that you would take away from this, is really work on identifying your top 3 or top 5 values. And there are many resources online. Specifically, there is a website where you can actually answer some questions, and that will help you identify some of your values. It's called the VIA, Value in Action Assessment. And that is something that's really constructive in helping you really streamline what your values are. So that is one. And then the other thing I really encourage is when, and these are some things that work for everyone. I know like coaching is so individualized and it really depends what's going on in an individual's life on a given day, but there are some things that remain consistent, which is how do you begin your day? And usually that aligns with the day before. The planning becomes, happens the day before. So it's just the little things. It could be a sacred time for you to either spend in your time alone with yourself or with your children. But even if you're spending with your children or with your loved ones, I would really encourage my clients and I encourage you to really start thinking about when do you wake up in the morning, like what is it that you're showing yourself, like what are your eyes going on first, what is it that's going in your mouth first, even if it's water, like what are you putting in your water, what are the things that you are putting your attention to when you wake up, because really we are going from the state of unconscious to a conscious way of living, and it's really important to really start honing down those small little things, because usually it's like one of my client, it's the little things that have a great impact. For example, one of my client, I just started working with her, and in a week she had lost about 3 pounds. And of course it was hard to identify what is it that really helped her, but one of the tools that I suggested to her was really creating this morning ritual for herself, wherein she would, instead of just going from this very fight or flight state into just waking up, looking at her phone. She's a busy working professional, and starting her day with just like putting something in her mouth and just running out for a meeting. So I told her to take some time for herself, make a little morning ritual out of her routine, like whatever time she had. She had about 20-25 minutes for herself. So adding some lemon water, and having water with hot water, not extremely hot, but lukewarm, to really ignite her digestive fire. Adding a little bit of like pink salt, which will help, her electrolyte balance, where where you can replenish your salts at the start of the day. And then the lemon would help her, reactivate her digestive fire. And she realized that she was holding a lot of inflammation and a lot of water retention, and just that small act. And there were other things that we had incorporated for her, but just that small act of starting her day with a morning ritual where she's incorporating that water was extremely helpful to her. So just it's so different. It's so different for everyone. There's so many ways one can incorporate a morning ritual. So I would really want you to think about that. What is it that brings you joy? Like, how are you feeling that particular day? I mean, some people say it's essential to ground in the morning. Some will suggest having like a meditation practice. But I know everyone has a very individualized routine, and you have a lot going on, and that might look different every day. So what is it that works for you? So really like spending some time thinking about it. How do you want your day to begin? Wherein the whole objective is to spend a few minutes with yourself and not really just starting from that state of fight or flight. So those were just some tips. I can help you. I can suggest what I do for my morning ritual, and then I'm going to move on to a question that Jillian here has mentioned something about helping her ideas to heal adrenal fatigue. And yeah, so I'm just going to share some of my other morning rituals with you. One of them is definitely starting my day with a morning drink, which is essentially lemon water. I also like to sometimes add some ginger powder. Fresh ginger would be awesome if you have time to make a nice ginger tea, especially right now when we're still transitioning from this cold spring to spring. It's the air is still really like in Ayurveda they say there's a lot of vata, which is it's like really dry, and the wind element is really strong. So really helps. The ginger along with the lemon really helps again ignite your digestive fire. So I like to do that. And then there's another non-negotiable that I have, which is my meditation practice. And that can look different every day. I usually like to spend at least 10 minutes. Ideally, it has to be 30 minutes, but I know, and I understand with everyone else as well, it's so individual and it's so different every day. And so really incorporating these morning rituals from a place of compassion, like I always like to say, like if we miss, and that would never happen, but if we miss brushing our teeth, we're not going to say, oh, I didn't do it today, so I'm not going to do it tomorrow. So I like to encourage clients as well that if you miss one day, that's fine, just come back to it. It's just the little things that we do every day. When we do it consistently, become a habit. So initially there might be some resistance because your ego will come like, oh my God, this is too much of time bandwidth sucker, and I need to get started with my day. And I would really encourage you to really, at that time, really assess that maybe you need it more, because the less time you have and the more busy you are, the more time you need to just check in with yourself. Because a lot of our life, the way we are leading, is happening from our subconscious. And so that is really the time when we spend with ourselves alone, really going inside, is the time to really shift that. Any of the old constructs, or shifting any limiting beliefs, or just an old way of living that we might want to change, is by really sitting with ourselves. So those are some things, those are my non-negotiables, like starting my day with a meditation practice. I also like to do a 5-minute gratitude journal, which I also recommend to a lot of my clients, and they have had profound, it sounds really esoteric and simple, but sometimes the simplest things can have the most profound effect. And they have had they've just been blown out of their own expectations by just incorporating something as simple as a gratitude practice. And when I say gratitude, I'm really saying it from a perspective of really feeling that heartfelt positive emotion in your heart space. So really like sinking into a positive emotion of love. And there is research that has shown that emotion can actually activate that parasympathetic state. It can even upregulate your immune system. And it can actually change the whole, physiology of your, and downregulate, the bad genes. And so with all that research, and you actually experience that, right? Really not just like writing it down, like, okay, I'm grateful for this, but really like sinking into how that feels. What is it that's really evoking that positive emotion? And that itself could be a meditation practice. So you can really combine those. So those are those really simple things that really don't really cost us. They're free and they're really accessible. And that's that shift of beginning your day from that space itself, and then taking actions, whether it's weight loss, whether it's working on my my adrenals, whether it's working on my my business or myself, or whatever it is. When you're starting it from that day, from that intention, from that positive place, the manifestation and the outcome is just exponential, rather than just like starting your day or acting on anything from a go place. So that was just a few of my tips for how you can begin your day. Now moving on to a question that was posed. I recently found out I'm dealing with adrenal fatigue, and I was hoping you could help me with ideas to heal. I was just told to reduce my stress, but that feels too broad for me. Thank you, Julian, for sharing that question. It's always very helpful when I have a question like that. Okay, I would definitely love to explore that with you. What I would want to say first about adrenal fatigue, like we have been given these labels that you have adrenal fatigue, but essentially what adrenal fatigue is, it is of course a dysfunction of our adrenals, of our of our HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary axis. And just like in functional medicine and in functional nutrition and anything that's really focusing on the root cause of a disease or of a condition, it's never one system. All our body systems are connected. So I do want to applaud the practitioner who told you to focus on reducing your stress. That's definitely one of the areas I would coach up my clients on when they present with that. But definitely that's not just one of them, it's one of many. But like I was focusing on the fact that everything is connected. So when our adrenals go out of balance, when there is a dysregulation of our adrenals, it's usually never one thing. So it is usually a place where we have gone out of homeostasis into, and it doesn't happen overnight. It goes from an acute phase to a compensatory phase to then eventually an exhaustion phase. So the earlier we have access to those feelings, and really our internal compass is the one that tells us first, but also getting some clinical evidence and a clinical correlation with testing. So I would suggest, if you haven't already, getting some kind of testing around your hormones. There is the Dutch hormone test, and there are several other to help you identify exactly, like pinpoint where you're having the cortisol dysregulation. But like I said, it's not just an isolation. Usually when we have adrenal fatigue, there could be something going on either in our hormones, besides our hormones, either in our immune system. And that immune system dysregulation could be because of a food sensitivity, So really also figuring out with an elimination diet, like what are the foods that might be triggering you, or going the next step and correlating with a test, a food sensitivity test. There could also be something going on in the digestion. So in your microbiome, there could be a gut dysbiosis. There could be a parasite, which is leading to is connected to your adrenals getting fatigued. There could also be something in your detoxification pathways. So figuring out, if your liver and your pathways are not blocked, and if everything is going on fine there. There could also be something with your blood sugar imbalance, so it's all connected. So when you work with a practitioner, perhaps bring this to the surface, that, getting tested, and also you bringing attention to your eating, like in terms of doing a food elimination diet, you bringing attention to, is there any, have you been around any hidden stressors around these areas, which could be in the form of, toxins. And then you again bringing awareness to, so this would be in combination with you and a practitioner, you bringing awareness to how do you feel about your cravings? Do you feel you have a blood sugar imbalance, when you wake up in the morning, during midday? Like, how is your energy production throughout the day? Based on what you're eating and your cravings. And so there will be a lot of these correlation of all these different contributors, these hidden stressors, and then really figuring out like what is really going on. And then I would address it based on that. So it's not just your adrenals, but it's based on all these other things: your digestion, your detoxification pathways, your immune system, and then really formulating a protocol which includes diet, which includes focusing on, and so it's called the DRESS protocol. So it's the diet, it's focusing on rest, really regulating your, figuring out what's going on in your lifestyle, and then exercise, what kind of exercise you're doing, and any other lifestyle improvement factors therein. And then also, like you were already told, really focusing on stress reduction, because that's really critical in this area. When you're already feeling, based on what phase you are in, whether it's acute or compensatory. And then last but not least is supplements, but that is always after all these other areas are taken care of, or sometimes based on which stage of adrenals you're feeling stressed, is adding them on. And they could be in the form of some kind of adaptogens, or they could be in the form of glandulars. But really, understanding what are your worst symptoms, and is it like, are you getting headaches, are you getting some skin issues, are you getting digestive issues? So it's never one thing. So I hope I've helped you get some insights there. I might just unmute you, and if you have any questions. Jillian, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. So does that help?
Yes, I have done a lot of work with food sensitivities, and I have found that definitely food does affect me, and I do have stressors with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are giving me some supplements, but I did not really think of the hormone issues, which definitely I have other symptoms of hormone dysfunction, like night sweats and some skin issues, but those are usually linked to the food sensitivities. And I did not think of doing a hormone test, so thank you for that. That definitely does help. And just adding, watching all the elements together and really paying broader attention. When they say stress, I'm like, I don't feel like my life is that stressful. I know that I have 3 kids, so of course there's some stress, but it's not like I don't have this really pressing job. I don't have, anything really in my face that would precisely tell me what is causing the stress to know to reduce it. And so for me, I was kind of like, well, just reduce my stress. And I do pretty good with my sleep, but I can see having started to pay attention to that more as a necessity and really requiring myself to rest more, and see where that can be improved too. And so that kind of plays in with the hormones, I think, which I didn't really think about. So thanks. I do appreciate it. It's a lot more than just one element, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm glad that was helpful. And then it's also not just treating the test results, right? Because then that's again a very allopathic way. While testing is essential, but it's also, again, like looking at evaluating all the other additional clues. Like I said, blood sugar, any other malfunction in your gut, evaluating, like the sex hormones, so everything kind of correlating, but then also realizing that you are the ultimate judge. Like the test will definitely give us information, but then you are really able to give the maximum information on how you feel, every day. You know what I mean? And also when you mentioned about stress, we even, like, it could be like how they say, like trauma, there are different levels of trauma, there are different levels of stress, but we all have stress. Even the fact that you have to get somewhere, right? The fact that if you pick up your kid, that is a stress. I mean, I guess to not be having any stress would be like sitting on a mountain maybe and just meditating all the time. Maybe that might also be a little bit of a stress because you're not around community. But stress is always there. So it's just like the levels, right? And so just proactively building in that stress reduction element in your life, like I mentioned, like just how you begin your day is something that only we ourselves can take responsibility, and then the other things will help us to just take it to the next level and support us. And then the results are like miraculous, when you work on everything together, right?
Yeah, I definitely I can improve in some of those I do have some routines, but I can see even just taking more time at the beginning of the day. Usually mine are kind of at the end of the day. But I
And
can see where I do get into fight or flight really quickly in the morning. When you were talking about that, I was thinking, oh yeah, I just bounced out of bed, and usually I'm woken up by kids and then instantly pulled into giving and doing. So even helping them understand and create a routine for themselves might be helpful just with our morning routine. Like making tea and having everybody sit down for a minute might also be like as simple as that, like just 3 minutes extra.
Right. And then, I have to ask you this because in terms of coaching, like since you've already suggested some things for yourself that you can go home and do today. So who do you think could hold you accountable for that?
Myself, but I definitely could ask my husband to help me because I've already enlisted him in this venture of trying to reduce stress. And I mean, I could even ask my kids to be, helping me be aware when they notice me more stressful, or just to say, hey, can we make this a time, like, help me do this every morning. I really want to do this for us. Or,
right.
But my husband's the easiest. Or I could enlist a coach.
Sure. Yeah.
I do find it very helpful to have a coach. Somebody to talk to and mull things over with, for sure, has been crucial for me.
Right. Yeah, that's what you could do in terms of coaching up, coaching up yourself with those therapies of stress regulation, and then other areas where you need help would be, working with a practitioner for testing and, like really analyzing all the pieces together to bring you back to a place where your vital reserves are back to homeostasis and you feel energized. Yeah. All right. Hope that was helpful. Is there anything else you would want to ask?
No, not right now. That was my one question that I hadn't. I was just like, that's so broad.
Okay. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and mute you. And I'm going to also share, if I don't have another question, I'm going to share, because this had come up with another client as well, and it could be helpful to you, which is some tools around your cycle, because that's also when we go in and out of fluctuation with our hormones. So that might be helpful as well. So I'm going to share that next. So I'm going to mute you now. Okay. And if anyone else has a question, or I'm going to go ahead and share some tools around, how you can balance your cycle better, and because that also has an effect on our adrenals over a period of time. It has an effect on our immunity. It has an effect on the way we show up in life, but how we can really be in control and master it. And as women, sometimes we don't really have access to that place where we can actually be in control of our cycle, and not use it as a time where we feel like out of control and out of balance. And food is again a great place for that. But then there are also supplements and herbs, and your own body will tell you. So usually in the first phase of our cycle, from the time we bleed to the time we ovulate, I always suggest clients, because this is kind of like an inflammation response of the body when we are coming into our period phase. So I suggest clients to increase curcumin, which is a compound found in turmeric, to increase that in your diet. And the other thing I encourage clients is to add omega fatty acids. This could be in the form of supplement, or it could also be in the form of, adding in some nice wild Alaskan salmon, some nice wild caught fish. And so in that phase till your ovulation, to really start adding these kind of foods in your diet, which will really calm the inflammation response. It will help us, with our stress hormones. And it would also, in general, help us being in control of our cycle. And so what we do during the cycle will also prepare our body for the next cycle. And of course, during this time also, 80% is really what's showing up from our mind and our subconscious. So throughout this time, focusing also on those practices of stress reduction, like what is it that I always come back to that? What is it that brings you joy? And focusing on those activities and rituals, whether it's reading, whether it's walking in the sun, like vitamin D is really essential as a supplement, but really getting sun to activate the melatonin production in our body, and also the serotonin, which then helps us have a good gut microbiome. And then the melatonin will help us stay asleep, which is again important for us to have good sleep during our cycle, and of course otherwise as well. And then phase 3 and 4, which is right after ovulation, the luteal phase, still our next period. So the phase after ovulation is when there is a lot of also focus on having our liver, like the liver detoxification has 2 phases, and that's really the phase that comes into play at that stage of our cycle. So helping that as well by adding some cruciferous vegetables. Those are things like, and that's good fiber as well. As women, we need more fiber as men, and as compared to men. So adding in a lot of broccoli sprouts, cabbage, leafy green vegetables, all kind of like, steamed kale. I like to stay away from raw kale because a lot of people are unaware, but having like a lot of raw kale can also activate, a sensitivity in the pelvic area, which recently, after a long time, had a client talk about it. It's usually with the high levels of oxalate, and so you might think kale is healthy, but sometimes it has these sensitivities to individuals because of this high level of oxalate, which you can diminish by steaming it. So yes, so add in more of those leafy greens, cabbage, sprouts. A lot of these insoluble fibers also are very high in prebiotics. So the prebiotics are essentially the foods for the probiotics in our that help have a healthy microbiome. So we can jumpstart that by adding in more prebiotic foods, like a lot of food through asparagus and inulin, fiber. So those are the kind of things that will really help us activate our microbiome. And then the cruciferous vegetables will help the hormones get safely out of our body. So if there's any excess estrogen, any other hormone, which is hormone mimicking chemicals. And so it's really essential to, get those out. And, food is medicine, and having more of those foods will really help us with that phase of liver detox as well. And some of these also help us. All of these foods will also help if we continue incorporating these through our cycle for different phases of cycles. It also helps us with PMS symptoms. And, sometimes you can also upregulate that by adding in adaptogens and different herbs. But I always say begin with food and take it from there. I do see Erica. Erica has joined in. Erica, do you have any questions? I just finished answering someone's questions around adrenals, and I was just adding some tips around what we can include food-wise in our diet based for different phases of our cycle, which can also affect our adrenals and hormone production. So I was just wondering if you have any questions, or if you want to be coached live, I can unmute you. If you have a question, you can just add it in the Q&A and I can answer it. So let me know. Yes, no? Then I'll just go on sharing some more information. Okay, I have a question from Caitlin. I have Hashimoto's and have been dealing with some hair thinning. What would you suggest? And Jillian, would adding a detox tea with tenderloin? Okay, Caitlin, would you be willing to come live? Can I ask you, I wanted to ask you a question to that. Can I unmute you, or you would rather just me ask you a question on chat? Okay, cool. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi.
No, did I unmute you?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, there you are. Yeah, so you want to tell me a little bit more about your hair thinning?
Yeah, so I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid disease, for those who might not know. And I just feel like over the course of the last few years, but specifically maybe over the last year or so, I feel like I've been losing a lot of hair, just kind of all over my head, not like alopecia where it's, in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry about that. So, can you hear me still?
I can. Mm-hmm.
So I guess I was just curious if you had any suggestions for, I mean, I know so much of it kind of pertains to what we're talking about with hormones and gut health and blood sugar levels and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if you had any suggestions specifically.
Right. So I wanted to ask you, how long has this been going on? Have you, and a couple of questions there, have you been on any kind of autoimmune protocol? Are you working with a practitioner?
Yeah, so I'm not currently working with a practitioner, and I probably need to get my just testing done again. But the hair thinning, I feel like it started maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and I feel like it's kind of gone in cycles or phases. But I've just been noticing it, especially maybe over the last year or so, that it seems to be more than it was before. And then I do, have a pretty restricted diet. So I'm like gluten, dairy, corn, soy, egg, canola oil, sugar free, all those things. And I do a lot of hot yoga to sweat and detoxify, and have done other protocols, but sometimes you just feel like you're taking a lot of shots in the dark. So that's probably why I need to get my blood and hormones tested again. But
right, yeah, for sure. It's always it's easy to do that, to just start treating the symptoms, which in this case is hair thinning. I mean, I could always suggest something for that. However, it would be ideal for you to do some testing and also really work with a practitioner where one can find out what else is going on, because like I explained earlier, everything is connected.
Totally.
So yes, you could get some minerals, and I don't know if you've been having any magnesium or any other minerals.
Yeah.
And you could get started on that. There are some supplements like biotin, which is really good for hair, and you could have some supplements like that. But really, focusing on all the other things that are going on and really working on everything else, like will really help having a long-term sustained improvement when it comes to hair thinning. But in terms of just starting something right away, I would look at adding some minerals. You can add them to your water, some trace minerals, and see how that goes for you. But I would, and then there are certain oils as well, Banyan Botanicals. You can go online and see they have some nourishing oils for hair growth.
Okay, great. Yeah.
But really, for the long-term sustainability would be really figuring out what else is going on, and then connecting the dots so it doesn't happen again.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hope that was helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Erica, do you have a question? Would you wanna, and just to add, Julian had a question, would adding a detox tea with dandelion or milk thistle help during the detox phase? Yes, for sure. Milk thistle is a great herb that helps with liver detox, for sure. That would help. But it's just one of the things, as I mentioned, it's just doing everything together. It's what really helpful. The other thing for detoxification would be also, I love suggesting this to clients also, is doing a castor oil pack. And that's something you can do every single day. And it's just one of those things to incorporate in your lifestyle to strengthen your detoxification pathways. All right, I don't see any other questions. Erica, I'm going to unmute you quickly to check if you have any questions. Can I do that? Okay, I'm just going to try. Hi, Erica.
Hi.
Hi, I just took the liberty to unmute you because we had a few minutes left. I want to check if you had any questions or you just hopped on.
I just hopped on. It's so good to see you and hear your voice again. And I was chatting, or I was typing in this chat box Q&A that came up, but I guess you didn't see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But,
I see your question. Best for digital de-stress. Is that your question?
Yeah, I've begun a full-time computer job. And so I'm kind of struggling a little bit with organization on a totally virtual, totally digital job, and finding the best way to refresh myself after long periods on the computer. I had some success with just going out hiking, but it's not always, or just going for a walk, but it's not always there's not always enough time, and the weather is not always agreeable with that. So just some tips on living that kind of digital work life and having a better balance.
So how many hours are you in front of the computer?
40.
Okay.
Well, that's just work. We do other things on the computer after that. So maybe up to 45 or 50.
But those are things that are in your control. The work is probably you're not in control, and so you have to be on the computer for those many hours, right?
Yeah.
So I have some suggestions, but I would like to ask you first, what is it that has worked for you in the past?
Well, it's been a good probably 10 years since I had a strictly computer job. Like all my recent jobs had been, physical world things, and working with my hands, and basically restaurant and bartending kind of work. And so back when I did computer work was probably 10 years ago, and I don't remember having a problem back then.
So what is your number one challenge? What are you feeling?
A bit of disorganization, of just adjusting to using multiple programs, and then the switching back and forth and staying on track with them, with my line of work, I guess you could say. But yeah, I think what is working is getting out, walking in nature, and just walking around the block and things like that. But I feel like I need a cognitive boost in some way that's not caffeine.
So you're looking for ideas in terms of supplements and like how to feel energized, or you're looking at, maybe I can just touch upon everything.
That sounds good.
Okay, so I mean, you probably are aware of this, but just having those periods of rest and renewal. So if you are able to take, in your calendar, like just carve out, okay, I'm going to be working for 3 hours and then a period of 15 minutes of break, and that's the break that you are looking outside, or you're just not looking at your computer, or you just get into that place where you focus on your breath and just recharging, oxygenating your cells to come back to work, and then really feeling more productive after that, right? So that is something that's accessible to you. Is that something you can add in? Does that sound doable?
Yeah, definitely.
And then there are those other things, which is like really depleting our cognition, which we don't think is maybe the EMF. So, and I mean, this might work for you. I mean, for me, sometimes I feel like these are things which are a little esoteric, doesn't work for everyone, but shungite is a stone. Like I keep stones near my computer, but shungite is a good stone which helps us, it absorbs some of the radiation. And it's shown based on research, and that's something you could keep on by your side. The other thing is, of course, and again, you might be aware of this, is wearing these glasses to block the white light,
Oh yeah. True dark glasses.
Yeah, and I mean, you get really inexpensive ones on Amazon these days, or something like that can help you. The other thing is having some herbs like rhodiola, which is an adaptogen which helps with cognition and combat that stress that you get from like just sitting all the time. So adding that maybe can help, like just drinking a lot of like liquids. And the other thing I would suggest would be incorporating, and I don't know if you already have that, like a standing desk.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can make one, like I've seen people, they just put like a cardboard box or something, and really, using that as a resource to stand. What else? I'm trying to think. And then of course using the a screen protector which blocks light. But if you get glasses like that, that'll be pretty awesome. But I would really stress on taking the breaks for switching off every 15, not every 15, but every few hours, and really focusing on your breath.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I have noticed that and I'm sure everybody does it, is they kind of I stop breathing when I'm on the computer. I'm like holding my breath in a way, and I catch myself and breathe in deeply. But yeah, that happens.
Yeah, my favorite is the box breath, or which is like really breathing for 4 and holding for 4 and exhaling for 4, or it could be any count, but really like the retention, the space between the inhale and the exhale. Or maybe even like whenever you feel that heightened state of anxiety, I always suggest adding a longer exhale that activates the parasympathetic system more rapidly, and that when you breathe like that. So, and then also the other one is, my favorite is really, which is how I began the session today, is really just focusing on your heart and activating that positive emotion of gratitude, and breathing into that space.
I'm smiling right now.
Yeah, those things are like free and so accessible. It's just sometimes we need that reminder. I mean, it's accessible to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm gonna mute you. And I think we are at the end of the hour, but I'll be doing this every end of the last Friday of every month. And then we have other two coaches if you follow Nutrition Works of Colorado. And they are also doing these calls during the month. But if you want to come back, hop on. I'll be here on March 27th, and then the last Friday of April, and the next month thereafter at the same time. All right. Thank you for your questions. I hope it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye.